What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Thought Leader Podcast. This is the 8th episode. I am your host, Dylan Barr, and in this podcast, we interview past and current thought leaders in the realms of health, wealth, and relationships in hopes to reaching past, current, and most importantly, future thought leaders. People that have a message in their heart, they have a mastery in their mind, but you might be on the precipice of comfort zone and uncomfort zone. We interview these thought leaders and we understand their story. We get to understand their message and their mastery, and we get to really understand why they decided to get uncomfortable in the first place. Today's realm will be the realm of relationships. We're going to be talking about embracing your brilliance. We're going to be talking about the journey, enjoying the journey, whether it's in business or in a Colorado trail. We're going to be talking about slowing down, and I'm very curious to talk about what thing 2 is with our guest. Our guest today is Bronwyn Morrissey, and get ready if you're listening. Bronwyn's a badass. Her journey, testament to diverse and enriching experiences. So she started with 27 years as a successful sales executive. So I've been a sales executive since she was 6. And she's the owner of a yoga studio. She transitioned to her true passion in 2017, becoming a professional coach. Beyond her professional endeavors, she is a seasoned athlete and outdoor enthusiast. How much, you ask? Let me tell you. She's completed over 25 marathons, numerous silent ultra marathons. I don't even know what that is. We're going to talk about it today. Longest race, the Miwok, hopefully I'm saying that right, 100, a grueling 62-mile run along the coast of California. She's a backpacker. She's conquered over 250 miles on the John Muir Trail and the High Sierra Trail, completed the rim to third rim in the Grand Canyon over 8 times, recently embarked on a solo thru-hike covering over 350 miles of the Colorado Trail. Her true passion, though, extends into her spiritual journey, dedicating 17 years to the spiritual path. She's participated in over 15 silent meditations, retreats, engaged in various spiritual teachers, currently residing in the mountain foothills of Boulder, Colorado. She shares her home with her husband, Checkins, and she has 2 beehives. Saving the world. Professionally, she's the CEO of Insight Global Coaching, an IPEC certified professional coach. It's not called IPEC, you said IPEC. And an educator teaching future leaders of the Mortgage Banking Association. Bronwyn's committed to personal and professional growth, and it's reflected through her group coaching programs, which we're going to talk about today, specifically offering women in business the opportunity to learn, grow, and up-level their lives in a supportive community. God damn. That's so cool. Welcome to the show, Bronwyn Morrissey.
Thank you. I actually don't have anything else to say.
That's it.
Thanks.
And outro. Cue outro. What? No, here's my first question. Typically, I like to ask the question first of what does a thought leader mean to you? That's your second question. First question, I read this now twice. Why do they call it the Miwok 100 if it's only 62 miles?
Oh, that is such a good question. So first of all, Miwok, I think, is a Native American tribe, right? And so it was named after that because they were in this area. It starts at the Golden Gate Bridge.
Okay.
And you run all the way to Point Reyes and back on the coast. It's 100 kilometers, which is 62 miles.
That makes a lot more sense. Makes a lot more sense.
So that's why it's Miwok 100.
Bringing kilometers to the United States, little different, but I'll accept it. You have done so much. I want to get into it today. I'm very excited to chat with you. You and I are close because we work together in one of our programs here at Thought Leader. You're going through Business Accelerator, which we'll talk about later in a small ad read. But let's start from the top. Our company's called Thought Leader, and this is called the Thought Leader Podcast. And the term thought leader is vague. For some, it's woo-woo. For some, for everyone, it's subjective. It means something different to everybody. So I'd love to start with everything that you've done, holding the title of thought leader, right? What does being a thought leader mean to you?
To me, it is sharing your unique ideas, like sharing who you are as a leader in the world. And always say that I believe that leadership starts with you. It starts on the inside. In fact, I was just on a coaching call with somebody, and she was talking about, how do I manage my team? How do I be a better leader for my team? And what it really came down to was how she was showing up for her team, right? And so to me, it's like, you can't be a leader out in the world, whether it's for a company, a team, your community or your family, if you're not leading yourself first. And so it's a lot of introspection. It's like slowing down. Like, what does that mean to you? If you don't want to be, for her as an example, she was talking about, like, I don't want to be a destructive energy person in the room with my team. And I said, well, what do you want to be? Let's not focus on what you don't want to be. Yeah. Let's focus on what kind of leader you want to be. And then what does that look like? And what are the actions they would take? And how do they show up for a team? What does it feel like inside your body? So that she could get really clear about it. So, for me, like, that's my thought around leader. And I feel like I'm a thought leader because I'm sharing a different perspective about what I think leadership means, and where it comes from is inside, which is our thoughts.
Which is the first word of it, right? I love the fact of it because there's authenticity in that, right? It's not being the leader we think of, that, man out in front popping his chest out. It's, no, who are you as a person? Yeah. Understand that. And we're going to talk about the introspection you've gained with all of the trips and the treks you have done. But when you understand that deep fire in you, it's easy to lead from that point, right? Can we talk about that deep fire for you? Because I love stories. I work on comics. I believe in the power of stories. They shape time, right? They influence time. I'm curious at the beginning of your story. And I want to go back to 6 when you got into sales. What was the initial spark that got you into this journey? It has led to coaching. It's led to creating your own program. It's led to owning yoga studios and taking treks. But it started with this spark to get into sales. Can you tell me what was that initial spark to kind of push you into this journey?
Well, okay. First, I'll tell you that when I was getting into my professional life after graduating from college and thinking my journey career would be something very different. I was in the Peace Corps, and I was like, I'm going to go save the world and do nonprofit work. No, actually, I had to make a living. My dad was in sales, and I always was like, ooh, I am not going to do that. Like, he's trying to connive people into buying stuff. Like, I had a really bad attitude towards sales. But sales is influence, right? Like, and they can choose to buy or not, but we're offering a solution to a problem that they have, which is still what we do today. And the reason I got into sales was not because I wanted to sell a product, which I sold lots of products. It was because I love connections. I love building connections with people. And that's what you're doing.
Do you remember when that shift happened? Because I coach this often of, like, sales seems to have this dark art in the last like decade or so, 2 decades, potentially further back. It's got this dark art of, what was it that made you shift from, oh, this is conniving to, oh, this is actually influence? And I actually really like the connection aspect of it.
Yeah. I think it was when my sales job, because I worked in mortgage banking, was going to call on companies, and they were long-term. They were, I had like 100 or so here in Colorado, and I would go visit them often. So you have to build a relationship. You have to build trust with them, respect with them. You have to have a shared purpose with them of, like, why are we even in relationship together? So it's a lot deeper than what I started off with, which was selling speed reading programs over the phone. And it was like a 5-minute, like, what's your credit card number so I can sign up your kid for this program that's perfect for him. That was not as much fun. Although it was helping people, right? Yeah. I mean, we're still, if you think about it, like, all we're trying to do is help people, whether they're buying a bedspread or whether they're buying a coaching package from me because they're lost in their career / life and want to figure out, what do I really want? Because there's no time to waste.
Yeah. I think the big thing when you get into sales and you realize, like, hearing no is fine. Like, I'll tell people that, and sometimes I'm like, you can tell me no, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm fine. And It's crazy because you can almost see if you do Zoom calls or in person, you can see like the pressure be relieved. And they're like, oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to tell you no.
Yeah.
I love how, because it starts with my wife, very similar, didn't do the Peace Corps, but international development. But then she's like, well, I also do have to pay my way through college. So that's important. So that's kind of what gets you into sales. You make a small shift when you go into mortgage banking, and it starts this spark of the power of influence, the power of relationship building. But I am curious after this, right? Because that's one of the first things I talked about in your journey. Then it's yoga studio. Then it's traveling. Then it's silent retreats, right? Then it's starting your own business that has been flourishing as you've started to build it. And now you're speaking, right? For you, do you feel like the spark has changed? That spark of influence and relationship building, has that changed as you go to different stages of your life, or is it just intensified?
I'm going to answer that a different way, if that's okay.
Please do.
So I feel like the spark is an impulse that comes from inside somewhere. You know, maybe it's our higher self, but it's like something you can't ignore. And so you start paying attention to it and you lean into it and you're like, I guess I'm going to do this thing. I'll use this yoga studio as an example, right? At the time I was a VP working as an executive in sales, but I knew there was something else. And that's what I mean. Like there was an impulse, like, I don't really love selling mortgage products. I mean, no offense, but I love yoga and I love the spiritual side and I love like the physical aspect of the physical body and all these things. So there was this impulse in me to follow that thread. Now that didn't work out for me. I didn't love owning a yoga studio. I love yoga. Don't love the business of yoga. So you know, then I followed a different thread, which is where I ended up now. So, yeah.
I think it's incredible because what I love about it is like you're willing to try. It's like, man, I live in a small town, and what you can see, not always in a small town, you can see a lot of like great ideas, but sometimes when you can get into these patterns, this is why we talk about getting outside the comfort zone, trying becomes like extra energy. Like, well, I'm not going to do that because what if I fail at it? Or what if I don't like it? What I'm hearing from you is like, well, no, there's something talking to me here. I'm going to lean into it. And let's say the yoga studios, this isn't for me. But you're able to learn and then pivot again and trust yourself. So as you go through this, I'm curious for you specifically, how do you stay inspired? Whether it's in mortgage sales, whether it's while you're owning a yoga studio, whether it's on the Colorado Trail, like, what is it that you consistently do? Because I feel like it is something we need to consistently fill up our gas tanks. What do you do to stay inspired?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I actually just taught a workshop called Attune to Your Inspiration. The beginning of the year, and everyone's, you know, like, we got to have New Year's resolutions and all these goals, but you can do it any time. For me, I'll say that whatever brings me joy or excitement, I lean into. But there are times, honestly, when there isn't a lot of inspiration, and that's information for us to listen to too, right? It might be that we need to take a step back and take a breather and look at, you know, am I really on the right path right now? If I'm not feeling inspired to, you know, create a new program or, you know, write my blog or whatever it is, it's like, what else needs to shift so that I can be inspired? And that, you know, again, that, you know, the inspiration is always going to come. Like we're always going to bubble up with ideas when we slow down enough to pay attention to them, and kind of get off the gerbil wheel that we can be on. But you know, I'm in flow with inspiration. I'm not always inspired every day, but I'll share a quick story with you about how I do get inspired when I have to, which I think is really important. So I was writing a speech. This was a couple of years ago, and I had a deadline. Like I had to get them my slides and get the whole speech outlined over to them the next day. And I was like, nothing, sitting in front of my computer, blank screen. I was like, you know, I knew it was about leadership, but I was like, I don't know what I want to say. And so I did the last thing that you would have thought I would do when I had this huge deadline. I put my running shoes on and I jumped on the trail and I went for a 7-mile run. Jeez. And by the time I was at the end of that loop and there was a store there, I ran in, it was like an auto body shop, and I ran in, I was like, do you have a pen and a piece of paper? And she's like, I have a sticky note. So she hands me a sticky note and a pencil, and I wrote the whole outline to the speech on the sticky note, ran home, did the whole speech. Inspiration comes when I'm out in nature for me. You have to find out where it comes for you. But for me, that's how it comes.
And then after that, it really just feels like, I love this. You fully trust yourself, where someone could be like, oh my gosh, there's a deadline in an hour. What do I do? And you go, I need to run.
Yeah.
Right? Someone could be like, you're wasting time.
Yeah.
And then, but in that run, you draw from what it is that brings you to inspiration. The other thing I like that you said is knowing that you're not always going to be inspired. So it seems like what you're doing is these self check-ins. And like right now I'm in this, the flow's high. I'm in inspiration.
Yeah.
And right now you're able to check in like, oh, it's a little empty, and you're okay with that.
Yes.
Very interesting. I love the aspect of balance and just being like okay with sometimes I'm going to be high, sometimes I'm going to be low. It's one of my core values that I would come back to, right? And it's one of the questions I like to ask some people. You seem like someone that would be my friend, hopefully. I would say like the concept of coming back to balance. I love imagination. Whenever I'm in my mind and imagination and thinking of this fantasy world, my superpower is balance, right? It's this process of someone that can know both the dark and the light. Like it lights me up. Question to you, what's your superpower?
Oh, that is such a good question.
Good, because sometimes it can come across as nerdy. Like if I'm out for drinks with my friends, I'm like, what do you think your superpower is? I'd be like, sometimes I'm like, I get like, shut up. I'm like, tell me, what's yours?
Yeah. I think that my superpower is being able to untangle complex situations that my clients, as an example, are going through, and distilling them down to simplicity so that they can reflect back and see it. And I can do that for myself too. So making things simple, right? Untangling, making them simple. I think that is something that I'm really good at doing.
Simplifying the complexities of life is what I just took with that. It's almost like being able to speak in layman's terms, these big, like hard to digest concepts at times.
Yeah.
Which I think we need more of. I have a close friend. She graduated Stanford Business School. She created this type of algae that can soak up sun, and she uses it to trap carbon and sink carbon for like carbon emissions. But she can tell me in such a layman way, because I'm like a small town Midwest guy. And I say like the world needs more of that. So for you, I love that, being able to take this complexity, turn it into simplicity. You and I have chatted about drawing outside the lines. I'm like, for people that are tuning in, I like to think inside the box to think outside the box. You talk about drawing outside the lines. Could you talk more on what that means?
Yeah. I wrote an article on this recently because what I remembered was being little and being scolded for and getting basically like an X on your paper versus a gold star for drawing outside the lines. And they made it wrong. Like you need to draw in the lines. It needs to be perfect. It needs to be in this structure, right? It needs to be these patterns and colors. And so I always made up that I was terrible at drawing, and I was an awful artist, and I still kind of have some of that because of this old story that was just a lie. Like, who says you have to draw it in the lines? Like, why was my picture any less beautiful than the one, the kid next to me that didn't go outside of the lines? So I feel like going outside of the lines in that respect, right, in terms of your creativity, but also having the willingness to, and this goes into being out of your comfort zone, right, is to push the limits, push society's, rules that they make on us that have such an impact on our lives. Can we push that? Can we go outside and draw outside those lines, which is what we have to do if we want to grow, right? I'm personally right now in a pretty complex situation where I'm very much out of my comfort zone in a personal way, and having to draw outside the lines and say no. been really interesting.
Yeah, because it can be even sometimes in society be like, well, you got to say yes to this. You got to say yes to this. You're getting to the point of like, well, no, now I actually want to say no here. I do want to hold those boundaries up because, and I'm going to speak as ignorant society when I say this, so please forgive any ignorance. I think like that drawing inside the lines and then looking at everything that you did, I think there's a lot of times your life was drawing outside the lines. Like society would be like, as a female, you're going on these solo trips by yourself in the middle of the woods. Whoa. What was the call for you to say, no, I'm drawing outside the lines. This is what I need. This is where I'm at with my flow and my inspiration. Like, what was that call then for you? Because I'd like to talk a little bit about the Colorado Trail.
Yeah. Okay. So the reason that I decided to do the Colorado Trail alone, the number one reason was because I am terrified of being in the wilderness by myself, or I was.
Yeah.
And now I've done it. And, there are tons of people that do through hikes, that do the Pacific Crest Trail and the AT and JMT. And I did those. I did the JMT with my daughter. Mm-hmm. And I've done a lot of outdoor adventures with my daughter and running the Miwok 100, right? I wasn't alone on the trail. There were 100 and something other people spread out over 60 miles. But even though you felt alone, you're like, there are people by, there's aid stations. But going out in the wilderness and being by myself and having to be completely dependent on myself and manage really difficult situations, whether it be a wild animal or, incredible lightning storm, which I experienced both, was like, I had to, if I talk about people getting out of their comfort zone and getting over their own fears, I better well do the thing that scares the blank out of me, myself. Mm-hmm. And so I did. And it was an incredible experience. It ended up being like this wild spiritual journey for me and like an initiation. It was crazy.
I mean, this comes talking to a friend again. For you going through that one, I think it's amazing. You're like, the reason I did it is because I was scared shitless to do it. So that means do it. You spend this time to yourself. It's a lot of introspective time, right? What do you feel was the biggest lesson, the biggest takeaway? Two-parter. One for your life and two for your business.
Yeah. If I could do that, I could do anything.
Yeah.
Right. And the year before I had done paragliding, which I'd never paraponting in Europe. And that was also like, I'm scared of heights. And I was like, trust, do it, jump. And those have made me a lot more confidence in my own ability and trusting myself and following my intuition, which has made my business a lot more powerful. I feel like my coaching since I got back from the Colorado Trail in these last few months, and also some work I'm doing on myself, has made me a way more powerful coach. Like, I will tell you the truth because that's why you came to me.
Yeah. Type
of thing. And in my life, the same, right? I don't hold back, which is why I have a sticky situation happening personally right now, because I'm like, I'm tired of not saying my truth, and I'm saying my truth. And it's going to be uncomfortable for people because they're not used to me showing up that way.
So now the newest thing that scares the shit out of you is like basically being able to tell some people no that are not used to it, because I mean, you can do it all. Literally, if we read that intro again, you're the Swiss Army knife of life right now. It's like, well, if it's tough, we're going to put Bronwyn on it. But now that ask is your Colorado Trail, where it's like, it's scary, but I'm going to tell you no, because you want to focus on what you have to bring, especially to your clients. And that's the next thing I want to talk about. I think it's a great segue to this ad read that I have, because we're going to talk about your business and using Business Accelerator.
Great.
For those curious what this podcast was brought to you by, this podcast is brought to you by Thought Leader, believe it or not. Over the last 8 years, Thought Leader has made it a mission to help its coaching and consulting clients get their authentic message out to the world in hopes of reaching their own desired audience through the power of speaking and business building. Bronwyn does both. With over 650 clients landing TEDx talks, hundreds more speaking on virtual and physical stages around the world, Thought Leader has perfected the art of delivering a top-tier message. They also offer programs to build and scale your own high-ticket program, present company included, and doing it authentically so you can market and sell to your target audience in order to build a sustainably scaled business. If you have a message in your heart or a mastery in your mind and you wish to share it with your desired audience, make sure you click in the description below. You can go to our website. You can check out webinars from Taylor where he talks about TEDx talks. He talks about building a business. Bronwyn went into our business accelerator program, which is the program that I ran for about a year. You had awesome success and you had a couple of different offers, one of which I believe it was back to back $25,000 months. That's amazing. I am curious now with what you do, right? Because I want to make sure I get this straight. Everything that you've taken in your life, you want to specifically help women in business. Women in business that are struggling with what in particular?
With balance is a big part of it because as usually it's moms who are trying to do it all and they're burning out. And I've been there, right? Until I hit a wall, literally had a car accident and had, to stop. And I was like, something has to change. So it's that. And it's also a lot of women that I've been talking to lately feel like they're lost, right? That they don't have a voice. And so it's really helping them build confidence to speak up and be more powerful in their organizations, or whether that's them building their own business. What helped them thrive and build their own business and have confidence in doing that. So it is leadership. Again, it comes back to self-leadership, all of these.
Or thought leadership. I love the three things that I'm hearing is the women in business. One thing that I'm hearing that almost feels like they're burning the candle at both ends. I am a mom, a wife, a provider here, and I'm working like mad for my business.
Yeah.
Number two could be, hey, there's some areas that there's some Colorado trails that I have in my business that I'm not tackling, right? And I want to step forward more. I want to run on them. I want to meet a wild animal. I want to see that lightning storm. I want to meet fear head on in the workspace. And others, they want to leave the workspace and they're like, no, my Colorado trail, my paragliding or parajumping, I think you said, is starting something new. Because we both know that's scary as hell. How do you take everything that you've done to help these women, right? Because you have silent meditations, you have spiritual learnings, teachings, musings that you've had. You have sales ability, you have business building. How do you take all of that to help the woman that comes to you?
You mean in terms of the structure of the programs that I do?
We can go structure, but it's also in my mind, it's you've done so much, right? How does it really influence your teaching?
I think that that what I bring to the table, let's say I'm coaching somebody one-on-one, because I have one-on-one clients and groups, and I take people into the wilderness to get them out of their comfort zone. And it's really my lived experience, all I've been through in my life and the success I've had navigating some really difficult times. I grew up in a very volatile and abusive home. And, I've heard my friend the other day was like, I cannot believe how successful you are given what you've been through. And I'm like, that's why I can help people, because I've been there. And right now, honestly, I'm mindfully looking at my dark side, and what do I need? What shadows do I need to uncover right now myself that I can help my clients uncover? And that is wildly uncomfortable as well, in a different way than physically. But from I've been there. I've been the unbalanced woman. I've been the one that was running too fast, had a yoga studio, a full-time executive job, training for the Miwok 100 until I literally flipped my car end over end in a car accident on my way to a training run. I was like, I cannot keep doing this anymore. And now I don't want people to get to that point.
Yeah. Thing that I really, I keep taking from you, and I have to ask 8 questions and I'm still hearing it, is you're walking the talk. if that makes sense, right? Like I'm thinking, I'm like, there's got to be a lot of these mom/business women that have never been in wilderness, right? You've done it. So part of your program is you have wilderness retreats. We're going to do what I did.
Yeah.
And we've all been in that program, or we've all heard that person that's chatted. And it's not like we're calling bullshit, but it's like, are you even doing this for yourself? I think a lot of times people could do everything that you've done and be like, well, I learned a lot of skills with it. I'm going to stop growing now so I can take time to coach you.
Yeah.
And that can be abrasive to learn from that person, because you're in that energy of, you're not doing this yourself, so I don't really fully believe it. One of the things we talk about in Business Accelerator is never ask someone to do something you're not willing to do yourself.
Yes.
You are consistently saying, what's my shadow right now? Where can I grow? And that's exciting to be able to learn from. And you're consistently getting uncomfortable. And that's the last part of our interview here. But before I get to that last part of the interview, part of your coaching is, you said you're IPEC certified. Mm-hmm. The nerd in me wants to know what that acronym stands for. IPEC. What does IPEC certified mean?
Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching. Yeah. And it's around energy leadership, which is, I love that topic. So yeah.
Okay. So it's around specifically energy leadership. So I know that if one of our clients out there is a woman in business, right, is someone that is maybe wanting to do her own thing, or maybe wanting to tackle her own Colorado trail within the workplace, or maybe wanting to do a better job setting boundaries, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Is my website, bronwynmorrissey.com.
Cool.
And all my information's on there. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on Instagram. So it's all Bronwyn Morrissey Coaching on Facebook.
Okay. And is it cool for our description if we put all those links below for people to find?
Yeah.
Awesome.
That'd be great. I would love it. Love it. Biggest
one being LinkedIn is what I hear.
Yeah. I have a big following, a lot of activity in LinkedIn.
So if you're a woman in business, if you're looking to get outside those comfort zones, if you're looking to tackle your own silent retreat, your own paragliding, but in the business realm, you'd be learning from someone that has done this before. And not only that, continues to do it and will do it along with you, which I think is amazing. And she'll take you into the wilderness and she'll show you wild animals and lightning storms. This is a tough one, because I always finish these calls with, why did you decide to get uncomfortable? But for you, you've done this 80 times in your short life. Like, is there a commonality? Because you even said, it's like, I knew I needed to do the Colorado Trail because it was outside my comfort zone. Is there this commonality of something you feel in your body or something you experience in the energy around you that says, I want to get on? Why have you decided to consistently say yes to getting outside your comfort zone?
Oh, it's growth.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just continuing to grow. I'm trying to think of what I'm doing right now to get out of my next comfort zone. I'm going to go back and finish the last section of the Colorado Trail this summer, which I can't wait. And now I want to add a whole nother thing to it. I was just looking at the G10 in France, which is 60 days. Which is definitely, it's in the Pyrenees. That would be fun. So, because I love nature so much. So, yeah.
So you feel getting outside, it's like the growth is what you say. And for you, it's as simple as the feeling of growth outweighs the feeling of fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's tough that a lot of these questions come down to something so simple, but I also really hope that reaches the people that listen to this podcast. In your opinion, I always tell this, egos aside, we're not acting holier than thou or anything, but I would love your opinion here. Why do you feel most people don't get outside their comfort zones when it comes to having that spark, right? That inspiration comes up, having that, and then they don't. What do you think is the biggest reason?
I think most people are scared, and they get stuck in fear. But what I would say about that is getting out of your comfort zone and doing something that is terrifying, if you will, feels terrifying, is you feel more alive when you're in that than you do when you're just staying status quo. So get out of your comfort zone to be more alive, because life is short.
You answered the last question to me, which is what you would tell them. And that is the fact. And the biggest takeaway that I'm getting from today's interview is the feeling of growth is greater and feels better than the feeling of fear. And the way to get to that feeling of growth is to push through fear. And to know that you're going to be in these motivational, inspirational moments. You're going to be in these empty moments, right? We don't have the inspiration that we have, and it's going to flow up and down, and that's okay. But life is short, and push through so you can get that ecstasy of the feeling of growth. Bronwyn Morrissey, thank you so much for being on the Thought Leader podcast. I was getting very excited for this. We had to push it back. Thank you so much for being patient as well. I'm excited for people to hear your message. If you're watching this, please feel free to like and subscribe. If you liked it, drop a comment below. Say the biggest thing you learned from Bronwyn today. Mine is what I already said. We will be putting clips of this up on our social platforms. You can find those in the description below as well. And next week, we will be talking with Kaya, who is also a badass woman in business, about everything that she's learned through relationships. That being said, we will see you all next week. Bronwyn, from me and all of our followers, thank you so much.